Good noon. Welcome po sa press briefing ni Presidential Spokesperson Ernesto Abella. Good noon, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to everybody. Una-una, papasalamat tayo for for all of you to being here. And if you noticed, this past week we've started to focus on some of the achievements of the 100 days of the president. And we've been inviting people who are in business, specifically those who have been either directly in business or economic analysts. And this morning, we have invited Mr. Peter Wallace. Peter Wallace has been living in the Philippines for the past 41 years and has consequently become fully imbibed into Philippine society. Kaya lang hindi pa daw siya nananagalog. Congress recently granted him and approved by the President Philippine citizenship. So ini-embrace niya ang ating pagka-Pinoy. Peter started his professional career as an electrical engineer and subsequently completed a course in business economics. In 1975, he was sent to Manila to build a factory manufacturing maintenance products. 3 years later, he accepted the position of chairman of a conglomerate, which is Colombian Philippines, that manufactured rope, processed abaca, represented airlines, shipping and automotive companies, and operated even a laundry operation, sanitary laundry, if I'm right, okay, and was involved in processing of food. Then on to being CEO of Getz Corporation, the largest trading company at the time. Later, he founded his own business, the Wallace Business Forum, in 1982, a company that is in its 34th year of success at helping CEOs understand business environment in the Philippines. He writes a weekly column in the Inquirer and is involved in a number of charitable endeavors. Also, he is a strong and active advocate for development of the mining and the ICT sectors. We have invited him to give his insights and input about the first 100 days, and apparently he has a long list. I'd like to call Peter Wallace this morning. Please welcome.
Thanks, Ernie. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. It's been 100 days, and everyone and their dog is analysing what's going on. I actually have 14 dogs, and I talk to them first, so I'm well versed in their opinion of Duterte. It's been a very interesting period, and certainly a controversial one in some ways. There's no question that there's been much discussion about the manner of the president and how he swears a lot. But we wanted change. Remember in the campaign, we had 2 trapos, and we had a lady who was beginning to be one, but wasn't yet and wouldn't be. And we had a man who came out of nowhere and was totally radical, was an obvious maverick, was quite strange, and yet that's what we wanted. He promised change, and we wanted change, so the people voted for him. And he won overwhelmingly, promising that change. And now people are complaining that he's changed, that he's different. And yet that's what we wanted. We wanted to get away from the old political systems and get to something new and different. Well, we have something new and different. And we need to start to understand and accept what he is. I've been studying this man for quite some time now. I've known him for quite some time. And I know that the way in which he talks is not the way in which he thinks. This is a man who genuinely cares for this country and genuinely cares for its people. And what I particularly like, cares for them out where it really matters, in the provinces where we have the poorest of the poor and the people suffering the most. And so he's angry and he's frustrated. And he takes this out by swearing, which is not terribly abnormal in the societies that he's mixed in, but it is difficult for particularly foreigners to understand. And what happens, unfortunately, is that too often what he says is taken literally rather than interpreting what he actually meant. Because if you do that, you find that most of this swearing is just at the top of the head type of stuff that doesn't have any real importance to it, that isn't the real intent. It's underlying that and behind that that really matters. And what's underlying and behind that is that he wants change and he wants to get things done. And we've had almost 100 days now, and we've had things done. I'm quite amazed, really, at how many things have been accomplished. I've got a list of 20 or more right here. But I think the one that struck us all immediately was after, 5 presidents, 25 years, we didn't have a Freedom of Information Act. Within 6 days, we had one. Just like that. He did the sensible thing. He passed an executive order. So at least the government side, the administration, now has to release information to us if and when we want it. That needs to be institutionalised now and expanded to cover the judiciary and the legislature. So it needs a law, and he's asked for that law to be passed. And I've no doubt, given the majority he has in both houses, that law will be passed. And so within just a few days, we've had the freedom of information, which we struggled to get for ever so long. He also has said that he is not an economist. He's not an expert on business. And what is very un-Filipino, he said, I'm the president, I'm the leader, but I don't know it all. When was the last time a president in this country said, I don't know it all? Right? And therefore, I will rely on the people I've appointed who do, who are experts. And he has appointed into his cabinet some excellent cabinet secretaries in the field that I specialise in, which is economics and business. His economic cluster is a very well-chosen cluster of people who are former businessmen and academics who know their job and know what has to be done. And he has said on numerous occasions he will rely on them and their guidance as to where to go. And they have said, they have drafted and released a 10-point agenda, which the business community reviewed and agreed with, have a few extra things to add to it, but essentially agreed with it. And its first one is we will continue the good policies of the previous government. That in itself is a remarkable change. Each government has wanted to just throw out the baby with the bathwater and start all over again. He said, no, continuity is important. We'll continue with those things that are good, and we'll speed them up. The PPP, for example, in the last administration, in 6 years, they have managed to approve 10 projects. Duterte has promised 17 before the end of the year. So in 6 months, not 6 years, he has done almost double what the previous government did. And we will start to see that. He has said, or Sonny Dominguez has, that we are going from 2.5% of spending on infrastructure to 5%, doubling. And if all of you know, this is one of the greatest weaknesses today, is the lack of infrastructure. For the past 25 years, we've spent half of what we should have, half of what the rest of ASEAN or Asia has spent on infrastructure, and it certainly shows. He has asked for emergency powers, and I see that that's a bit stuck in Congress at the moment, and I certainly hope that this will change. They are arguing, and reasonably, that they want full detail, exact detail of what it's going to cover. Well, I think they've got most of it from Art Tugadi. Maybe there's a few areas to clean up. But as I said in a column I wrote the other day, I'd like to see Congress act with emergency powers too and pass this before they go into recess on October 22. If any of you have ever been stuck in traffic, has anybody here been stuck in traffic? Huh? Everyone, for hours on end. Don't we need emergency powers? Don't we need to act rapidly and quickly and drastically to solve this problem. So we need Congress to do that too. Stop all these hearings and things for now. Concentrate just on getting an emergency powers so the government can act with speed to get things done. One of the first under those emergency powers where we would see immediate result is that all traffic would come under a central authority, no longer under the various mayors throughout the country, throughout the city, who have different ideas on what should be done and how it should be done, so there's no coordination. This is not the way to do it. It has to have an overall coordinated approach to doing it. And we need that tomorrow. We need it today, actually, before I go home. So I would like to see that done. I think I'll stop there for a few minutes, and maybe there's a couple of questions people would like to ask.
Okay, questions, MPC? Raymond Tinasa, a question for Peter Wallace or Raymond Tinasa?
Hi, sir. Sir, I understand you've been into the mining sector for decades now, quite some time. Sir, you understand pretty well how much the Philippine government is not getting that expected or what we deserve revenue from the mining sector. So will you ever support for the increase of the tax or revenue collection from the mining sectors, especially how much the damage you've been doing to, I mean, the mining industry, some mining industries have been doing to the nature, to our territories?
Yes. I come from a country that grew wealthy on mining and agriculture. So I am very keen on both those because I've seen the success they can achieve. Mining was doing very well, but there's one clear distinction you must make here, and that's between responsible mining and the irresponsible. And I include in the irresponsible small-scale mining. We should stop small-scale mining entirely, whether it's legal or not, whether it's responsible or not. You can't do mining in small scale, right? It just doesn't work. So if we focus just on those companies that will act responsibly, that will meet all the strict international requirements for operating a mine, which many of them can, then we should be encouraging them to do so. We need the wealth that is in the ground to create jobs for people, to bring wealth to the country, and to generate dollars, which are useful to have. But it must be responsibly done. As to the taxes, Aquino was wrongly informed that we weren't getting enough tax. The IMF did an intensive study of not only the Philippines but comparative countries and determined that the Philippines, in fact, is paying one of the highest in taxes to the government of all the mining countries around the world. Some 46%, I believe, which is almost half their revenues. This is good, right? They are paying enough. There's no need to look at the taxes. The taxes are okay. What needs to be done is to rescind EO 79, which has got too many faults in it, go back to responsible mining as was originally intended, make sure that it is done that way. Those companies that have 14,001 classification, they are acting responsibly because international experts have come in and determined that they are. That should be more than enough to say that they are. But they must look after the environment. That's part of responsibility. They must be committed to putting the land back into as good or better condition at the end of the mine. And they are.
Okay. So I understand in Davao area in Mindanao, there are at least, please correct me if I'm wrong, there are 30,000 pits include small and small scale mining. So what could can you suggest to correct this wrong practice? I understand some reports are also saying that some NPA or the rebel groups are maintaining small-scale mining and the source of that. So, what can you suggest to finally correct this wrong practice?
I'd do a Duterte. I'd close them down. As I said, small-scale mining employs kids, uses mercury, does not in any way look after the local environment, right? It is not a good thing to have. I would just close them down.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Ina Andolong, CNN Philippines.
Good afternoon, sir. Earlier, you talked about understanding how the president speaks, and many consider him as the country's top diplomat, being the president. How would you describe his recent tirades against U.S. President Barack Obama? Yesterday, he said, and I quote, "Mr. Obama, you can go to hell." How would you describe? How do you understand where he's coming from when he said that?
I think, as I said earlier, firstly, I'm not sure that there is a hell. I don't think it exists, actually. But again, it's his manner of speaking, right? It's his expressionism. He doesn't mean for Obama to go to hell, right? It's just the way he talks, right? He's trying, I think, to establish that the Philippines is a truly independent country. It is no longer a colony of the U.S. It is no longer subservient in any way to the U.S. It wants its independence. And it's in a fairly dramatic way that he's trying to put that across, right? Now, it's an unusual way. It certainly isn't politically, internationally an acceptable way. It doesn't go with the normal foreign policies of way you deal with people. But it's his way, right? I'm not sure the foreign community will ever be able to understand it, but I think people in the U.S. government will, right? I think the people in the White House are smart enough to know that what he's saying is not what he intends. I don't see him as trying to divorce himself from America. That would make no sense, right? He's just trying to establish an equal partnership, and that's a different thing.
Sir, how are you satisfied, or are you happy
I'm
with...
never satisfied, no.
Sorry, sir. Are you satisfied with how the government is responding to allegations of extrajudicial killings? And do you see this concern over this matter affecting trade deals we have? For instance, the EU GSP, where the Philippines is a beneficiary of.
I'm not sure how successful this will be. It's certainly been, it certainly had an impact to date, right? There's no question. All the numbers seem to say that drug proliferation has declined dramatically. Whether this can be continued, I'm not sure. Experience elsewhere in the world says it will be difficult to do. Not impossible, but difficult to do. So it may not be the right approach. My own thinking, which is very radical, even more than his, is to legalize drugs. Countries that have done this have found that the number of deaths from overdose, etc., the amount of crime has decreased dramatically. But when you don't legalize it, you decriminalize it. And so you can take them, but it has to be under controlled conditions. Marijuana, for example, is proven medically to be less harmful than cigarettes. And yet cigarettes are legal, so why isn't marijuana? As a very first step, I would legalize marijuana, that's it. What harm is that going to do? But certainly I'd look into it, and certainly I would research the alternatives because worldwide, it was in 1998, I think, there was a worldwide attempt, a promise to eliminate drugs in 10 years. It was a complete failure. Some $300 billion was spent, and it failed. This is a very difficult problem.
Sir, the second part of my question, do you see this allegations of extrajudicial killings affecting our treaties or deals like the EU GSP?
Well, I don't see it. No, I don't. And I don't see it affecting business particularly. There's no question that there has been some concern raised by some of the foreign business community over these. But nobody's withdrawing. No companies are going out, right? Business is not affected directly, right? It's more perceptual. For new foreign investors, they're going to need a more intensive, if you like, explanation to realize that, in fact, this doesn't have an effect on business.
Question? Ace from Joseph Morong, GMA 7.
Sir, can you elaborate more on your point to legalize drugs? Of course, you don't mean to legalize shabu, right?
Hmm?
You didn't mean to refer to shabu as that to be legalized.
I think it depends on the drugs. I'm not an expert on drugs. I've
Yeah.
never even tried one. But there are some drugs which are not terribly harmful. There are some which are terrible. If you give people something that's legal and not too harmful, maybe you're able to stop the really harmful ones from being wanted. I think it's the kind of research that needs to be done. I can't give an easy answer to it, but I think it's worth looking into. Because Poland, I do remember reading, Poland has done this and it has been successful. So let's look at the example of Poland and see if we can replicate it. And I would add to it that what's needed is education. If you start off when a child is 5 years old, educating them on how harmful drugs are, that they're not the thing to do, there's a good chance that by the time they get to their teens, they won't want to try. We've seen this in cigarettes. The decline in cigarette smoking is quite noticeable throughout the world today because of the education, because of the information that has been given out of the harm it can do. So fewer and fewer young people smoke today than they did when I was a kid, and fewer than when my dad was a kid. The trend is definitely down. So something legal but not good, once it's explained, people tend not to want to take it.
Thank you, Joseph. Vance Fernandez. Microphone, please. Catherine, please pass the microphone. Thank you.
Yes, good morning, sir. My question is, what frustrates us is, we know, is traffic. Now, we lack of foresight. Traffic.
Traffic, yes.
Yes,
With
traffic.
traffic.
Now, what can you suggest to lessen this traffic?
Discipline. Discipline. Doing what you're supposed to do. I'll give you one simple example that drives me mad. Is I come to an intersection and the light is green and I can't go through because the traffic on the other side has blocked the road. So I can't get through, right? 2 minutes is wasted. There's a blank road on the other side, there's a great stack of cars here, and there's 5 cars blocking the road. Stop it. That alone will start to speed up traffic. In Australia, if you have an accident, by law, you must remove the vehicles if you can. In the Philippines, you leave them there for an hour before the traffic aides and whoever turn up to take pictures and talk to the people, and the traffic banks up and banks up, right? Impose that right now. There's a whole list of things like that, small things that can be done. Buses must stay in one lane. There must be no overtaking by a bus under any circumstances in any place. Malls, schools, any public anything like that, you must go off the road to unload or load. Around the corner if they don't have the access to do it. It's been found that if you stop for just 20 seconds, you create a roadblock that lasts for many minutes beyond. It just slows. You've got to keep the flow going. As soon as you put a brake in it, everything gets dislocated. So no stopping under any circumstances on major roads. I was coming down to the palace here a couple of weeks ago, and it took forever. And so we followed ways and went around all the side streets. Some of the side streets were down to one lane because there were parked cars on both sides. So a cars coming from each end, because it was two-way roads, wouldn't be able to pass each other. Now, I know it's tough if you own a car and you've got nowhere to put it, but what are we talking about here, right? Millions of people needing to move, or a few people having cars. If you can't put your car off the road, don't have a car. And I'm sure that there's good business opportunities here for people to put up some parking stations for people like that. But we have to think very dramatically about the good of the 12 million people, not the benefit of a few. So we've got to give alternative routes. Things like that. I can give you a whole list, but that sort of thing is what needs to be done. Yeah?
So in short, we need discipline.
Yes.
Yes. Sir, President Duterte has rightly realized that a crisis needs a crisis solution. Do you agree? So we need to implement such thing as emergency powers. And we have also the procurement process of bureaucracy. Now, what else can you give us a solution to add to this kind of problem?
Well, I think the one that you mentioned, procurement, back in the 1992, when Ramos became president, you were probably not born then, we were suffering 8 to 12 hours.
I agree, sir.
We were suffering 8 to 12 hour blackouts every day because Cory Aquino hadn't built power plants. And Ramos came in and said, I will give you back electricity by Christmas of the following year, but I need emergency powers to do it. Why? Because under the normal bureaucratic systems, you have to go out to public bidding, and you have to then choose the lowest bidder. And that all takes several years to do. Under the emergency powers that Congress granted Ramos, he was able to go out and negotiate for power plants. And so he went out to the world, and he went out to some of the biggest power plant manufacturers of the world, and he negotiated deals. Now, this is not the cheapest way to do it, and people today complain because of the cost of electricity and blame Ramos. No, you blame Cory, because she didn't give us power. So he had to take emergency steps because he realized very rightly that no power is far more expensive than whatever you pay. And within about 15 months, he had enough power plants built to give us back electricity. Well, I see that being easily replicated the same way with the traffic problem, right? We need, for example, we need a second bridge across the Pasig, right? Up near Guadalupe there somewhere. We need it tomorrow. If we go through the normal processes, it will be 3 to 5 or 6 years before we have it. If we have emergency powers, we can put in what's called a Bailey Bridge within about 6 months, right? That's the kind of thing that can be achieved. Yeah?
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you, Vance. No more questions. Thank you, Sir Peter Wallace,
No, I'm not knighted.
Presidential Spokesperson Ernesto Abella.
Thank you, Peter. I'm sure you got a few insights there. And again, maybe it's also important to just say that the opinions that he has said are his own and do not necessarily reflect the management. Okay. All right, but thank you, Peter. We'd just like to address 2 or 3 things, and then we're done. We'll confine it to 3 questions. Just a comment regarding the Australian foreign minister saying that the Philippines should stop extrajudicial killings. We'd just like to say this. Australian Foreign Minister Julie Bishop on Monday urged, and just like the foreign leaders who have concerns regarding the processes in the Philippines would best serve their purpose by addressing it through the proper channels, proper diplomatic channels, instead of voicing it over media. The other thing is about shabu prices up in northern Mindanao as war and drug intensifies. Just like to make a side comment regarding the matter that apparently the crackdown is making headway and that the supply is being lowered, and which tells us that the efforts against illegal drugs is succeeding. Regarding the EDCA needing a president's signature, I'd just like to say that the president's legal team is currently addressing the matter. Thank you.
Questions? Janeline or Alexis? Raymond Tenasa.
So good afternoon. Sir, so can you confirm the White House statement just today that there are not actually official moves or official channels being done to actually implement that new foreign policy of the Duterte administrations against US, or there are no actual communications yet
Right.
being sent to the State Department?
Just like to pick up on what Mr. Wallace had said earlier, that a number of his statements are not really, are basically expressions of frustration and a desire to express the independence of the Philippines. But at this stage, there are no official statements, no moves regarding these matters.
So all clearly, categorically, it's just all words, all statements, no official.
There are no official moves regarding the matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
No more questions? MPC? Maricel Halili?
Sir, may we just have your reaction about the statement of Senator Trillanes asking for the explanation of Office of the President about the 2 billion pesos increase on intelligence funds?
I'm not privy to that particular issue at this moment, but we can get back to you.
Okay. Catherine Valente? Microphone, please.
Sir, regarding the first 100 days of President Duterte. Sir,
I'm
regarding the 100 days, sa Friday na po, may know po kung ano yung mga activities na nakahanda po.
That's going to be coming from the PCO itself, and let's wait for them to be able to unfold.
For you, sir, as presidential spokesman, how do you evaluate po the first 100 days of the Duterte administrations in terms of drug, crime, and corruption? So how do you evaluate po?
It's not my place to be evaluating that, but from where we are, from what we can see, it's made dramatic progress. For example, when they say that the first phase has been successful, basically I see it in terms of creating awareness. Who knew how deep it was? But from the efforts that has been done by the president, people are now so made aware of the depth and the width of the extent of drugs and the way it has infiltrated, for example, all the way down to apparently up to 97% of barangays. And so the awareness, I think the first part of the first part of any campaign, or as it says, war, is to be able to identify the enemy, and the enemy here is the illegal drug apparatus.
Ay, pwede pa. Sir, regarding the EDCA, may report po kasi na lumalabas na napirmahan daw po ito ni President Aquino last June 2015. Tapos, may we know po, kasi sabi ni President, hindi daw po ito napirmahan, isa daw po yun sa mga bases. Bakit?
Like I said earlier, the legal team is looking into the matter.
Okay po, thank you.
Thank you.
Ay, who, sir?
I just said legal team. Okay, thank you.
Tricia?
Sir, good afternoon. Edgar Matabato had an interview with Ms. Wina Mansod sa Bawal ng Pasaway, and he revealed that then Mayor Duterte watched as the alleged supposed DDS killed well-known people. Can we get the palace reaction on this?
I think that those matters should be properly referred to the investigations and should be referred there. Thank you.
Okay. Alexis?
Secretary, what do you say to the decision of the Senate Justice Committee to terminate the hearings on extrajudicial killings?
That is their call.
You wouldn't have any comment about it?
Not at this stage. Okay.
Okay.
Joseph Morong, to be followed by Raymond.
Sir, yesterday, I think yesterday, 2 days ago, si Senator Coco Pimentel said that there's no such thing as the Lima sex video. He saw the video, but there's no member of the Senate there. So,
No
But-
member of the Senate in the video?
I mean,
Oh, okay.
referring to Secretary De Lima, Senator
okay.
De Lima. So there's no De Lima sex video as far as Senator Pimentel is concerned. But the president, in previous statements, seemed to suggest that a different thing. So was the president misled by others? By
At this
some
stage,
factors?
opinions regarding the matter should be left alone. And after all, a number of concerns have been raised regarding regarding the matter. So let's leave it as it is.
No, but was the president misled into thinking that it was Senator De Lima inside in the video?
I'm not aware. I cannot have any opinion no matter whether he was misled or not.
Why?
That's
Sabi
his-
niya, nakita niya yung video, right?
Okay, let's leave it at that. Okay, thank you.
Vance Fernandez.
Sir, good afternoon.
Yes, Ms. Vance.
So they're laughing, eh. Sir, did the president sign the law for the postponement of barangay election already?
The what?
Barangay election
Sangguniang Kabataan
postponement.
and barangay
This-
elections.
He simply said that he's discouraging the whole matter. Okay,
Short answer, sir.
very short.
So, sir, pero isasend to sa Congress, isasubmit mo ng palas para magkaroon ng postponement
Yes.
ng elections?
I think come again.
Already a postponement.
Waiting for his signature.
Signature.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you for filling in the gap. Yes, one last question.
Well, yesterday, yung kay Mr. Obama na comment and some senators, I think Senator Lacson said, na mukhang, and the president also said naman na parang hindi niya kaya makinig dun sa advice because naman na rumenda because mawawala yung momentum. We get that. But some senators saying that, comment like the one he said about Mr. Obama is unnecessary. What do you think of it?
Okay, these are the opinions of the senators, and thank you very much.
Ina?
Sir, just going back to Joseph's question earlier.
Which is?
So the president is still standing by his statements that the video of Senator De Lima exists. Is that right?
That is his statement.
Okay. On another matter, sir, you mentioned earlier that there have been no moves regarding the president's pronouncements on foreign policy. But is this maybe forthcoming because yesterday he said in his speech in Makati that, and I quote, "Eventually I might, in my time, I will break up with America." What does he mean by that?
That in the future he might make moves. So in the present there is no moves yet, but that in the future he might.
There's no certainty because it's might break up with our ties. When you say break up our ties, what do you mean by that, sir? What
as-
did he mean by it?
Simply that he again. I would like to the way the way he expresses himself. It is that he still wants an independent foreign policy. So in other words, the breaking up may not necessarily be a breaking up of alliances in that way. It may, but he's not saying that. Basically, just as far as let's just going back to the statement that he has made. It is basically expressing an independent foreign policy, that it is not exclusive, that it is inclusive, that we are not to be held down by any just one treaty, for example.
Lastly, from me, can we just get a response? Is the president open to legalizing marijuana as suggested by Mr.
As far as
Wallace?
I know, not. As far as I know, there have been no official statements. I may be wrong regarding the matter, but that is, of course, a very radical opinion by Mr. Wallace. It's a democratic society. He's a Filipino. He's free
Okay,
to
we're
express.
taking last two
Thank you, sir.
questions from Vance Fernandez and Alexis Romero. Vance, microphone, please.
Yes, sir. Senator Trillanes said he thinks the election won't happen because
Which
trans-
elections?
Can
Yun
you
na
please
postpone
let
na.
me?
No,
Sir, can
is
I repeat
election-
my question?
Kaya nga, tinatanong
Yes.
ko which election?
The next election. It's like this, sir. Now, Senator Trillanes said he thinks the election won't happen because a transitory provision can be inserted in the event that charter change happens and President Duterte can stay on until 2008 or beyond. Do you think there is a basis for this kind of Senator Trillanes saying this kind of words? such
I'll have to check on the legal matter regarding that. Okay.
Okay, sir. How about the cabinet meeting? Do you have any?
What
Can
about
you
the cabinet
please share
meeting?
us yung cabinet meeting the other day?
We went through several reviews of matters. For example, one interesting thing I can share with you is Secretary Ubial's visit to Cuba regarding healthcare, it was very, very impressive. Her report was that Cuba has an excellent excellent healthcare that supports the citizens. Among other things, that was one, and that was very, very interesting. It took up a lot of time, some time. Thank you.
Thank you, Vance. Alexis Romero.
Just a follow-up on the U.S. He said he might break ties with the U.S. yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. So how do you reconcile that with his previous statement that we will not cut any ties or the umbilical cord with any of our allies?
This is not policy, but this is my opinion regarding the way he makes statements, okay? Like, for example, if I think very recently he said he wants, I think it was yesterday or this morning, he said he wants Americans out of Mindanao. So he calibrates his statement. So he carefully calibrates his statement. So along that line, if we follow his style, then let us not simply just put a period at the end of his statements and say that let's wait for his clarifications regarding the matter.
Do you think he should be more specific next time so as to avoid misinterpretations or?
We can want or we can wish, but this is his particular leadership style, so it's best, I think, to just allow him to complete his policies in time.
So, final question.
Mr. Wallace would like to make a comment regarding the matter.
As I interpret what the president is doing, is that, and I think I've more or less mentioned this, is that for the last 60-odd years, since we broke away from America as a colony, there's always been this kind of subservient thinking. And he wants to break that. He wants to establish that the Philippines is a truly independent country, independent of anyone, and on equal standing to any other country. Even though we're a small country, equal standing to others, as all countries do want. His way of doing it is rather radical, right? But that's his style. He's not, I don't think he has any intention of breaking away from America. I think he well recognizes that the relationship with America is very important, but it must now be on an equal, independent basis, not in the previous manner that it has been, and that's what he's trying to achieve.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace.
Thank
Raymond
you.
Tinasa, a last question from Joseph Morong.
Quick lang sa akin, sir. Sir, but what is clear now is we are now leaning more towards Russia and China.
I don't think we're leaning, it's a question of leaning more towards Russia and China. It's just that he has expanded his options.
Pero ang sabi niya,
Yes, he
kagabi-
made that, I understand, he made those statements. But it's not a question of, it's a question of broadening his options. It could be anybody else, actually. It could be anybody else. But he simply is broadening his options.
Kasi sabi niya, breakup. So breakup is breakup. Then pupunta na tayo dun sa Russia and China na meron daw respeto sa tao. Unlike US who doesn't respect.
Okay. Precisely that. But it's not, it could be anybody else. It could be anybody else, except that at this stage, it's Russia and China that he's referring to, right? But basically, if you notice, it says Russia and China are giving us respect.
Respect, yeah.
Respect. So you can tell that the tenor is not so much what economic benefits he can get from the country, but that he is getting respect. And that's exactly what the president apparently is wanting, that he wants the Philippines to be on equal footing with others, whether they're big or not, but he wants to respect them, and he wants to be accepted. He wants it on just an equal footing.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Okay,
you.
si Joseph Morong, sir, and then Vance wants to clarify something. Joseph Morong.
All right.
Sir, I think the Vice President Robredo had a press conference this morning, and then she said, well, advice niya kay Presidente is to be a little more circumspect in his speech, especially with regarding mga international aid. We're not an island. We're not, we exist in a global community.
Correct.
What can you say about it?
I think in connection with what I just said, I think we should, I can understand, but if you notice the tone, and this is no reference to the Vice President, But according to the way the suggestion was framed, that we should be careful because of the aid, that the aid might be cut. But that, from the president's perspective, it's not so much the aid that we're after. It is that we want to be received with dignity and not subservient.
So just to rephrase it a little bit, is the president or is the palace worried about the implications on our relationships with other countries when you hear our president speak like that?
Is the palace concerned?
Yes, sir. I mean, repercussions.
Repercussion. Okay, again, let me go back to it. If you notice, he said, handa tayo. He says we should be ready. In other words, for him, the great issue is the dignity that we have as a Filipino nation. Not so much na baka mahirapan tayo, ganon. But hindi sinasabing walang kwenta yon. Ang sinasabi na dapat, tingnan natin. Actually, if you really notice, I mean, this is my opinion. He seems to be a one-man social revolution. Hindi ba? Parang binibigyan niya sa atin yung, parang tinuturuan niya tayong igalang yung ating pagkabansa.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you.
So, last question na lang si Deo de Guzman and then Vance Fernandez. Last 2 questions na.
Sir, you're saying na yung lean ng presidente sa China and Russia is just broadening his options in terms of business?
Options in relationship. Hindi ba kasi, kumbaga, ang pagkakatingin natin, ang perception niya is that masyado tayong subservient, hindi ba sa sa US. Kumbaga, sinasabi niya na para bang na we matured, nagmamature tayo. Kaya itayo natin sarili natin, tahakin natin yung lakad natin, sarili natin. And one of the ways that we can there's China, there's Russia na mukhang pwedeng tumulong sa atin na ilakad natin ang ating pagkasambayan, pagka-Pilipino.
Yes, sir. I just don't understand because if you're broadening your options, then why close another?
He is
one?
not closing. He is
Yes,
broadening.
Why close? Because he said he wants to cut ties with the
Yes.
with US.
Okay.
That's not broadening.
Okay. Siguro ang mahalaga dyan is dapat intindihin natin yung word na cut ng ties. Sabi it's a possibility that he might. Hindi ba yung pagkakasabi kanina, might. He might. Okay? So, okay. But let's try to use our creative imagination. Okay? Huwag tayo masyadong literal.
Sir, that's being creative.
Ganun nga siya magsalita.
It was his statement, sir.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay, correct. I understand. But in other words, we're trying to ask, you've seen the way he speaks, right?
Yes, sir.
You've seen the way he speaks. So in other words, intindihin natin ang konteksto ng pagkakasalita niya. Okay? So at this stage, kung gusto mong kung tinatanong mo sa akin yung opinion ko, ang opinion ko ay sinasabi niya na ito yung US, pero ngayon, hindi lang tayo nakadikit sa US, tinitingnan din natin baka pwede tayo makipag-usap sa Russia at sa China. At sa palagay ko, kung sino pa man na makakatulong sa atin. In fact, he's creating relationships with the ASEAN, hindi ba? Gumaganda nga yung relasyon natin sa kanila. So kung tinatanong mo yung opinion ko, yun po ang aking opinion. Salamat po.
Thank you, Deo. Vance Fernandez?
Okay, Sir Eratom. Sir, clarify pala yung kaninang tinatanong nyo kung kailan yung election, that is this coming 2022. Now, my another question is, do you have an update on Joma Season's urging to release some political prisoners?
Pakiulit po yung tanong.
Sir, can you give us an update? Sinabi po ni Joma Season to release political prisoners in compliance of Comprehensive Agreement of Human Rights and International Humanitarian Law.
Ano na? Ang pagkakaalam ko po ay yung hinihiling niya yung release ng lahat.
Yes, sir. All.
Sa pagkakaalam ko po, pagkasabi ata ng Presidente ay hindi lahat. Merong mga marirelease. After the peace talks siguro.
After the
Mag-usap
peace
ulit.
talks. Thank you, Vance.
Magandang tanghali po sa lahat at okay na.
Okay.
Alin?
Okay. Thank you.
I'm asking you this as a spokesperson of the
Yes.
president who should be able to clarify his pronouncements.
Okay.
We keep on focusing on understanding where the president
Okay.
is coming from. So did he mean what he said yesterday?
That?
To the Philippines, that he may break ties with the U.S.
Okay.
Is that a yes or no? Are we?
He said
is-
that. He said that.
Did he
okay?
mean it, or is it something that?
Well, let's put it this. He said that. He said that he might. Okay? Let's base it on that. He might. It's not a definite. Yes, it's not definite. No, he said he might. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ina. Thank you.
All right. He has an option.
Oh, sige.
Ganito na lang. How much of the president's speech is policy?
It's impossible to quantify. Let's but ganito na lang. It becomes policy when there is official action.
Okay.
Okay. Thank
Okay?
you.
So
Thank-
ganun, malino, tama?
Yes.
Ha?
Thank you, Malacañang Press Corps. Thank you, Mr. Peter Wallace.
So walang tama pa. Okay?
Okay.
Tama.
Thank you, Presidential Spokesperson Ernesto Abella. Back to our main studio sa Radyo ng Bayan.
Sandali.
Okay.
Gusto ko lang malinaw. Bukas ba nandito kayo?
Sir, yung iba kasi,
Kasi
they're going to
bukas,
Batanes.
ang inimbita natin si Jose Almonte. Joel Monte. Okay? And I think I just heard him, he gave a speech. He made a report. You might find him very, very interesting, as I did. Okay. So, sino po ang nandito bukas? Are you gonna be here or going to Batanes? Many will be here. Okay, then we'll have Joel Monte tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
11:30. Thank you.
Thank you, Presidential Spokesperson Ernesto Abella. Back to our main studio sa Radyo ng Bayan at PTV Channel 4.